Mr. Speaker, after 8 long years with this Liberal government, taxpayers are realizing just how badly this country is being run. Everything's costing more, partly because this government is spending money hand over fist. For example, consulting firm McKinsey received $120 million in contracts from this government, but nobody can tell us why. Not the Prime Minister, his ministers, or his officials, no one. In what universe does a government spend $120 million on contracts and drag the country further into debt without knowing exactly why? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians remember full well that during the pandemic, when everything was uncertain, the federal government was there for them. We invested $8 out of $10 in support for Canadians during the pandemic. The federal government did that because not only did we need to be there for people because it was the right thing to do, but it was also the smart thing to do because we saw record growth in jobs and strong economic growth. The reality is that Canadians are suffering now, and we need to continue to be there for them. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer concluded that $200 billion over the $250 billion spent during the pandemic that had nothing to do with the pandemic. Some expenditures included $173 million of taxpayer money into Medicago, which just announced that they're going to close their doors, owned by the Japanese company Mitsubishi. They invested $173 million without figuring out if this company was actually going to lead to long-term jobs. Why are they spending money hand over fist without making even basic checks? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, no one's surprised to see the Conservatives once again attacking our policy of vaccination and suggesting we did not do the right thing by trying to get vaccines, all the different types of vaccines possible, to make sure that Canadians could have access to things that were going to save lives. That's exactly what we did. We were very lucky to have all the vaccines we did because we went through this pandemic in the best way possible. Better than many other countries who will continue to be there to support Canadians during these difficult times. That's what this government does. The opposition is preaching austerity instead. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It took nearly 2 years for the Prime Minister to meet the premiers for Quebec and the provinces. The issue is health transfers, which we've been talking about since the first time I came to this place. This issue is an issue of speed. There are people who are suffering. There are people who are worried. There are people who are afraid. There are people who are waiting. Can the Prime Minister agree with me and say that what ensures speediness in treating people is a quick check and not conditions? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Allow me to correct my honourable colleague and highlight that for 2 years, no Prime Minister has had more meetings with premiers about health. For several weeks at the beginning of the pandemic, we were there to talk with them, to help them to invest $72 billion more in federal money on top of the $40 billion per year that we send to health systems. And I will be pleased to sit down with premiers tomorrow to talk about how we can